Come closer. Today we are going to talk about Trudvang Legends, a review that is long overdue. Trudvang is a Norse mythology. CMON released Trudvang Legends based on this mythology on Kickstarter in 2019. When the campaign launched, Trudvang immediately followed the known CMON Kickstarter pattern. But within the first days, things changed. The pledge amount dropped and the backers started to pull back. Monetary stretch goals that had been reached suddenly didn't meet the requirements, as people started to unpledge or lower their pledges. CMON was placed in a conundrum. Did they manage to save Trudvang Legends, or is this game a waste of your money and time? Let's find out! So most of you will know that CMON games usually have a lot of plastic. For example, the Zombicide franchise, but also the games like Bloodborne and Massive Darkness 1 and 2. Some games, like Xenoshift, don't have any minis, but this is one of CMON's earliest games. So one thing that immediately stands out is that Trudvang Legends doesn't have many enemy plastic figures. This is important, which is why I will get back to you on this topic later on in the video. So let's try to start at the beginning. Trudvang Legends is a cooperative campaign game for 1 to 4 players, which takes place on the campaign board. The campaign board gradually gets filled with location cards which are slotted into the board. This is a different mechanic compared to games like Gloomhaven, where you need to place stickers on locations, or like Tainted Grail, where the map is made up of individual cards which you need to place on your table. These cards are your campaign board. Next to the campaign board you have the adventure board. Here, new unlocked campaigns can be stored. Also, if you find companions, they are slotted into the board. There's also a column to place cards that are related to the sequence in which you need to handle different steps in the game. The basics are travel, engage and explore. During the game, steps might be added to this column that can have effect in the rest of your campaign. One other thing that you might recognize from CMON is the player board. Now, this is not one of those fancy Zombicide player boards. These are flat. The board isn't big enough to place everything on it, but it's not that big of a deal. Now, I don't like the symbols. They are somewhat confusing, so I might not place cards on the right spaces all the time. Players slot their character onto the board and take the corresponding deck of feat cards. Next, they will place tokens in their bag according to the chosen character. Finally, we have the points of interest board. In this board, you will need to slot the sheet corresponding to the campaign you have chosen to dive into. During the campaign, you will be asked to open up slots which lead to new parts of the storyline you are exploring. Now let's get into my favorite part of this review, the negatives of Trudvang Legends. Trudvang has almost no board presence. There are 6 figures of each basic enemy. If you need to place more of a certain type of enemies, then there are figures you need to place a token underneath that figure to show that it is just not one enemy. During your explorations, you might find an enemy for which CMON did not make a mini. You need to place a special enemy token to represent that enemy. Sometimes you might face a bulltrog leader. How do they represent this? You guessed it. Place a bulltrog on the game board and place a leader token underneath it. Sure, I get that it might be too much to make a mini for every enemy in the game that you might face. But this can really be a vibe killer. One other thing to note, why are there only 4 types of basic enemies? Sure, in Zombicide you only have 3 types of basic enemies. But in a campaign game I expect more variety. Those 6 enemy figures of each type also have the same stance. Call me spoiled, but Trudvang Legends really misses out on the board game presence department. Event cards are pretty funny. They can help you a bit and punish you a bit during your explorations. It pains me to say, however, that after playing multiple sessions you no longer need to read the flavor text. Just take the test and take those penalties or rewards and you'll be fine. But it gets even worse. After session 8, you have probably gone over most event cards 2 times at least. No new event cards are added to the deck, as well as none will be removed during the game. This is a missed opportunity. Having more event cards really adds an extra layer of depth, especially when some are added and others are removed. One thing that is a bit in the grey for me are the feat cards. The feat card system works pretty well. They are used for combat and can have damage, heal, blocking or skill abilities. You have 8 cards or more if you get weird cards, but forget about that for now. You can only have 4 cards in your hand at a time. So, if you are hoping for one card in particular, there is a 50-50 chance that you will get it. You will get familiar with them quickly. The upgraded versions are pretty much the same, but in a better way. And there are sometimes some extra effects. So, on to what is good. Trudvang Legends has a really low entry point. The setup is easy. Just place the board on the table. Most cards have already been slotted, so you won't have to sort them. You pick one of the quests that is available to you, place the enemies and heroes on the board corresponding to the intro story of the quest, and you are ready. Trudvang Legends is quick. Trudvang Legends is a campaign game for players who don't like to grind or just want to explore the story or are relatively new to campaign games. I think Trudvang Legends has many similarities to a pick up and deliver game. When you start your quest, you are asked to move to a point of interest. Once you're there, you get a bit of a story, might get into a fight or need to take a skill test. And then the story proceeds and you are asked to place a new point of interest on the board. You move to that spot and the cycle repeats itself. A quest can be fulfilled in about an hour or 2 or even faster. You can really understand what the story is about due to the constantly drip-fed pieces of information. Most of the rules are straightforward. Almost everything that happens in Trudvang Legends is so obvious you don't need a rulebook. There are some exceptions to this, but with some scanning in the rulebook, you know what to do. I say scanning. I do have some trouble looking up some rules in the rulebook because they weren't on the pages I expected them on. The bag building element is a nice concept of this game. During your quest, you can add certain element tokens to your bag. You may be asked to place Doom tokens in your bag, you can get Wild tokens in your bag. All of these extra tokens are lost once you have completed a quest. This is very good because the game might get too easy or too hard if you have managed to grab on a lot of Doom tokens or a lot of Wild tokens. There is one exception to this rule. If you manage to gain Fame cards, you can get extra tokens to your bag. These stick with you until you lose that card. This can be very handy, since your party might only have 2 fire tokens per player and some skill checks might ask you to have 3. Now you have a shot at making this skill check. So all in all, Trudvang Legends is better than expected. It is definitely not top tier and it has its flaws in some key compartments. But the ease of playing and the fast pace of the storyline really makes up for these flaws. I would not recommend Trudvang Legends to players who are looking for a grindy game. I would however recommend Trudvang Legends to players who come to experience a game with a lot of story. So one thing I didn't mention yet is the price of the game. The base game here in Europe is around €90. And for the amount of components in the base game, I think €90 is a bit too steep. In my opinion, €70 would be more in a range figure I would be willing to pay for just the base game. Well, that's all I have for you today. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next video.